Steve Morse here, and I'd like to talk to you about 5 of my favorite riffs. It's actually not riffs, and they may or may not be favorite, but 5 things that I do often. I think they would be sort of favorite stylistic kind of things that I do with my playing and writing. First of all, the idea number 1, or thing number 1, is arpeggiating chords rather than just doing a melody, is playing support notes. And I think a lot of that comes from playing classical guitar and being in a trio where you've just got some empty space, some more empty space to play with. If you got, grinding keyboards and everything, you don't need to do as much of that, I guess. It's turned into a stylistic thing. So even like when I was playing with Kansas or Purple, I would do this kind of arpeggiating the chord that I'm going on. So I made a musical example with all 5 of these ideas, one right after another, which I'll play at the end. And, it's not a musical example. It's just that I like to put things to music to demonstrate them whenever possible. The first one is I'm playing a D major chord to a E to a D, or to A, D, then to a E to F sharp minor. Anyway, it's a typical diatonic progression. So we'll call that idea number 1. So I'm playing the 3rd in melody, and a root and 5th down, an octave and half below, pre-bending. Then same chord, but different voicing. 5th. Playing it. The right way to finger this is like this, but the next chord I need to bend to pre-bend that next note, so I change the fingering to 1 and 3, and that's the same inversion with the 3rd on the bottom. Now we're going to A. There's only 1 note in there because I'm holding that. Now back to a D. Now I'm playing the F sharp. The F sharp minor. So F sharp minor. Oh, it's an E chord, but I play the G sharp. I think that's a little tubby of a note, so I'm going to play the G sharp. Back to F sharp minor to finish the cadence, not to finish the phrase. Okay, for the second example, I'm going to show you the technique that I use all the time, which is having a top note act as the melody note, and then kind of almost continuous ostinato notes beneath it. And in order to keep that, instead of going, I use a little bit of movement. So let's start with the first chord. It's an A minor chord. Going to an E 5th. So A minor. Back to an A minor. Different voicing, or different inversion. So A minor, E minor, ending on a F fourth, which, because I've got a real fat pickup, I'm playing rather than a treble. I need to be careful about which notes I end up with there. So usually fewer notes is better for playing chords when you got, a distorted or fat sound. Anyway, you've got to keep skipping strings with this example. Here I'm starting on the fourth string to second. Same here. And that's just a normal fourth. Now I'm going to fifth to third. That's a C major. I'm applying to a G fifth. Now to A minor, to E fifth. Now I'm playing the third and fifth of a D chord to end it. So this is something I use constantly. I guess it's one of my favorites for that reason, but it allows me to get a lot of motion and keep the energy going of a part, but have very little harmonic movement, except for the chromatic notes. But when I play the full example, you notice that the chromatic notes are not your focus. It's the top note and the sort of implied harmony that becomes the focus of our ears. So by simply playing the bottom notes, the chromatic notes, continuously, or giving the impression that they're being played continuously, because every once in a while I have to stop playing them to play the upper note. But that impression, that persistence of hearing that that our brain gives us, makes the focus on the changes and the top note. And I think because of that, it's one of my favorite techniques to use. For example 3, this one is, this is something I do all the time, and that's play sextuplets. Especially now, so I had to change my technique to doing way less wrist movement. And basically the only way I could practice playing fast is with a stiff wrist. So I'm doing this idea on the first 2 strings, which is much, much easier than string skipping with a stiff wrist. So 6 notes per beat. And I think it's like playing chromatic notes. The notes you start with in a phrase that you put on the strong parts of the bar are the ones that you really hear. So here. The first one's, that's all diatonic A minor. It's diatonic, but it's not defining A minor. But it's in the second beat. Then back. An A minor 7. Then the next fourth beat. It's really defining a D minor, but I'm ending on a C third. But when you hear it going by with that kind of background, then your mind will sort of hear the diatonic notes as being all similar, and it just kind of defines a texture in your mind. So I use scalar patterns with sextuplets all the time. I mean, ask any of my critics. No, they'll tell you. You don't need to ask them. Anyway, the alternate picking of way that I play them is the easiest for me because, that's what I've been doing my whole life. But there are other alternatives to do these 3 notes per string. One is, most obvious is, pick, hammer, hammer. And there's another technique that I've worked on as a future alternative for me. When I can't do this, the sextuplets individually anymore, it was to where you pick dun, dit, dun, dit, dun, dit, dun, dit, dun, hammer, dit, dun, dun. So pick, hammer, tick, pick, hammer, pick, hammer, tick, like that. So it's economical. Maybe that's what people are talking about with economy picking. I don't know, but that's a technique that if you sit and practice it for about 10 minutes, going all over the guitar, it'll come real natural. And that gets a different sound. That means you can't pick it as hard because your hammer-on is going to seem tiny by comparison. But the people who could really do these techniques well, they practice getting a light but very accurate pick attack. And then almost always they have a lot of preamp gain or booster or distortion pedal or something going on, which helps provide some kind of noise for that note or notes that are hammered on or pulled off. So anyway, yeah, I'm obviously not an expert on that, but I use hammer-on notes to help give them shape next to a pick note. And I intentionally have the hammered-on notes not as equal, so it's rather than. So for me, I like for the hammered on notes to sound different. But if you're doing a sextuplet pattern and you're not going to alternate pick every note, then I think it would sound good to try to bring your pick attack down, make it as small as possible to allow the hammered on notes to speak with as much, enunciation or volume. For example 4, this one is something I typically do when I'm just noodling around trying to, remember a melody, is I will put some bass notes in or accompanying notes almost without realizing it. So the example is okay, closer. So it's E minor. Top. So I'm defining a D major with the F sharp in the bass to a G third. Damn, I'm not sure I get the time. Yeah, basically I'm just filling every note that I'm not playing the melody as a continuous sort of ostinato bass, unlike the other where I was doing chromatic. And the second phrase is I'm playing a D in the bass. And that may strike you as a weird thing to play a B over open A, but it's a passing note. And it's on its way to the resolution, which is a B fifth. So second half. So back at the I guess it's just playing a simple chord progression, but it gives a little bit more energy and interest to me to break it up that way rather than to play them all as double stops. And you could do that as a variation, obviously, but anyway, that's typically one of the things that I do. For idea number 5, in the example, I kept the background as basically the riff from idea number 4. So that's I guess that's the basis of it. And the theme of number 5 is playing a different accent over the background. So this is easily da 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 da, and again, something I do a lot. That 3/4 thing, and so for a melody over. So that's sort of a little different grouping, but doing the 16th notes against that is something I do all day long. And in the example, you hear them, they sort of work together and they sort of fight each other. But it's rewarding to me. It sounds good because it gives different accents and syncopation in unexpected places when you have two different types of rhythms happen at the same time. And to play this, it's super easy. 12 fret minor. Do the bends. So without the bends, it's not going to sound. By doing the bends, it sort of makes it, a legato in the middle of the phrase, which also contributes to that syncopated feeling by having, the pick attack and then a sort of relief from it while the note's bending. I repeated those last few notes in the example to make it work out to end on the note that I wanted. And then second half of the phrase, obviously it's just bend time. Bend, 2 fret. And that's typical. So that's idea 5. Now we'll see if we can string it all together. Anyway, those are 5 of my favorite techniques. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the road.